dedicating this talk to everyone in the middle. And by middle, I mean my fellow Midwesterners, as well as anyone living anywhere who approaches life from the middle of the road rather than from the extremes. We all know those middle stereotypes, don't we? Flower country, vanilla, ordinary. Well, I don't believe those words apply any longer, if they ever did. In fact, I'll go one step further. I believe that the middle is the new edge. You're the people who can solve today's big problems and launch tomorrow's new ideas to move this society forward. There's evidence this is already happening, which I'll share. But first, let me tell you what I know from my own personal experience. So I'm about as middle as they come. I was born and raised in the heartland, in Kansas and Nebraska, not far from the geographic center of the United States. I'm middle-aged. I drive a mid-sized sedan that I park in front of my mid-sized house. Politically and socially, moderate middle. Even on my personality assessments, I score in the middle of the scale, halfway between extrovert and introvert, creative versus analytical, flexible versus rigid. I've spent my life in the middle, and that's not just geography. It's a mindset, a temperament, and a perspective on life. So right about now, you might be wondering, how did someone like me become the head of a $2 billion organization, one of the most innovative and influential foundations in the country? I mean, let's face it, most leaders and innovators are viewed as unusual people with exceptional skills. I used to think that too. After I graduated from the University of Nebraska, I moved to Southern California. And man, I could not wait to leave my heartland roots behind. It was going to be a fresh start for me. I was going to be an LA girl. People out there would ask me, so where are you from? And I'd kind of shrug them off. I'd say, oh, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm just from somewhere in the middle. Well, my Valley Girl accent has long since faded, and I'm a lot wiser now. And I've realized that my middleness is nothing to be embarrassed about. It's not a liability, it's an asset. And it can be for you too. So let's break this down. Just what does this middleness mean to me? I've got 4 points. First, it means being centered. We people in the middle don't get too carried away with extreme emotions. I think it's the weather in the Midwest, right? It's taught us that when a storm in life hits, it's best to keep a level head. Second, we middle grounders tend to be practical. Rather than buying into some magic bullet philosophy, we're more interested in what works, which is usually a combination of a number of approaches. Coming from the middle also means having a healthy sense of humility. Of course we have egos. We just don't focus on feeding them. Rather than doing flashy, provocative things that draw attention to ourselves, we try to collaborate and draw others in to create solutions with us. In this time of extremes in our country, that is a very valuable quality. And in fact, there's research that backs this up. According to the Center for Creative Leadership, the ideal leaders are people who can foster learning and collaboration in changing times. And I think we can all agree in our country now, we need people more than ever who can build that kind of common ground. Finally, we're resilient. We don't blame others for our problems or get defeated by setbacks. Instead of making excuses, we try to make it better. There's a quote I love that comes, and I think it kind of describes the essence of this concept, and it comes from the US president who made the Dakotas his second home, Teddy Roosevelt. He said, do what you can with what you have from where you are. There's evidence that this spirit has reemerged in the Midwest in a new and powerful way. At the Kauffman Foundation, we study and support entrepreneurship. And while startup activity in the US is half of what it was a generation ago, our data show that entrepreneurs are making a comeback, and the mid-country states are playing the role of the comeback kids. So of the 10 metro areas with the biggest jumps in entrepreneurial activity last year, 6 are in the middle of the country. Here in Fargo, startup activity has increased every year for the past 3 years. What's the city with the highest percentage of women-owned businesses? Denver. And the picture is even more encouraging when you look at the kinds of new ventures that are being launched by people in the middle. Because not all of them are chasing just the hottest trends that cater to the 1%, like digital juice machines or whatever. We're seeing everyday people attacking everyday problems and turning them into positives. Here's one of my favorite examples. So the Mississippi River watershed has a problem with an invasive species of fish called Asian carp. Now, Asian carp are different than common carp, and it turns out they taste good. So Vietnamese immigrant Lula Lu started a company in Paducah, Kentucky to solve this problem. Fin Gourmet contracts with people to fish for Asian carp, hires unemployed individuals to do the processing, and then sells a variety of fish products, very creatively branded as Kentucky Blue Snapper, to restaurants and consumers. As a result, they're turning an environmental issue into an industry, putting people to work, and reducing our reliance on imported foods. Another example is from my hometown. In Return Strategies was started by Kansas City businessman Jim Atwater. Jim is hearing impaired. He realized that many of the country's disabled workers are highly capable, but about 70% of them are unemployed. So his firm places people with disabilities into jobs where they can thrive, and that business is growing too. Our country still needs plenty of high-tech scientific startups. And look, I've got nothing against fancy apps or juice machines. But at the Kauffman Foundation, we're giving increased attention to grassroots startups that are solving everyday problems. We believe our country's best path forward for the long term is to produce more new ventures of every kind. Studies show that startups punch way above their weight when it comes to creating jobs, innovation, and opportunity in our economy. In fact, most net job creation in this country comes from firms that are less than 5 years old. The good news is this momentum in the middle goes beyond starting companies. We're seeing people coming together to solve problems in other interesting ways. Like in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where a high school teacher and a group of citizens decided, hey, let's do something about the fact that our education system is a little out of touch with modern reality. So they created the Iowa Big School, a new public high school built on an entirely different model. Big School students spend a lot of their time working on real-world projects, like creating a virtual reality display for a history museum, or improving inventory flow at a local distribution company. One student worked with a mentor in the garment industry to design clothing for women who aren't shaped like fashion models, while other students are working with architects and engineers on city planning issues. The common theme with Fin Gourmet, In Return Strategies, and the Big School is that none of them came from certified big thinkers and elite enclaves. They came from middle Americans, proving you don't have to be extremely gifted, extremely famous, or extremely anything to make a big difference in the world. It's all a matter of seeing what is and seeing what could be, and then doing what you can with what you have from where you are. At the Kauffman Foundation, we draw inspiration from our founder, Ewing Kauffman, who was a great entrepreneur in his own right. Mr. Kauffman called himself a common man who did uncommon things. In my role as CEO of the foundation, I strive to be a common person who enables uncommon results. My middleness is the core of who I am, and I know now that it is my greatest strength. I encourage you to embrace your middle self and make it a strength for you too. Our country will thank you because there is no shortage of good work to be done. As great as our society is, it is still far from what it could be. I believe it'll be you, the grounded, practical, collaborative people who live and approach life in the middle, who will play a big role in taking us there. You are the reason that the middle is the new edge.